So, I know what y'all getting ready to say. Rio, what brought this on? I know you like the dot hack. What's dot hack? Um, this is something that I've been into for a few months. Before I had even moved into the in my new place. Uh, Master Zen told me about it, and all I could remember was back when I had my PlayStation 2 demo discs, and one of them had a trailer that was talking about dot hack. And back then, I remember I was very interested in playing this game. I was very, very interested in playing this game. Only problem was I never got around to getting it, never got around to playing it, and I missed out on a series that honestly um I wish was still going on, but it ended in like 2018, 19 or something. But yeah. Dot Hack is this MMORPG type game that is very heavy with lore, and it feels like the beginning of like an isekai like world. And I like it a lot because of what I remembered as a kid, I was interested in this. I really was. I remember in the trailer that they had for that. I was so scared. I was scared. It was this one moment where like this huge monster. I forget what his name is. He has a name. I should just open this up first. Yeah, Skeeth. Sketh. Uh, the Tower of Death, right? And he was attacking the main character, and the main character looked scared shitless. But it ended off there. If I can find the clip of that moment I'm telling y'all about, I'll put it in this video.
It wasn't supposed to be this way. I'm sorry.
But I've been wanting to introduce this to the channel for a while now because, well, you know, y'all been recommending me Power Rangers and Pokemon all like so much. Is just I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about something else that deserves to me making a video, a reaction video, or and possibly doing a live stream of us playing this game. Um, Either that or talk about it some more. But yeah, um, without further ado, let me go ahead and because I found this um yesterday. It's called Dot Hack: The Birth of Modern Isekai by Glass Reflection. I'll put the link of the original video in the description down below. Go support Glass Reflection. He made this video 4 years ago, right? And I'm interested in what he has to say about this. So, without further ado, let's get on into this. Let's go.
If you were into any combination of anime and video games in the early to mid 2000s, then chances are you've heard of Dot Hack before. Long before the Sword Art Onlines and the Log Horizons of the future, the Dot Hack franchise was the first to take the isekai genre of having a protagonist sent to another world and apply it not to fantasy, but to something more like modern science fiction, specifically a video game. That also had a little bit of fantasy to it. Yeah, we'll forget about that bit. This was a bit of a bold move in retrospect. Like, the whole setting of Dot Hack revolves around an MMO called The World, from a time when MMOs only really just came onto the scene. The first
Right.
released instance of any hack media came out at the start of 2002, and this was a midpoint when it had only been 5 years since the term MMO was even coined with the release of Ultima Online in 1997, and 3 years since the release of one of the more modern mainstream MMO experiences with EverQuest. This was also a full 2 years before the monolith of an RPG called World of Warcraft would be released.
The initial entries of Dot Hack introduced us to this fantasy-like world, but one that was heavily rooted in gaming mechanics and terms. This kind of setting would only become more prevalent as the years went on. So ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and today on Glass Reflection we are taking a look at the early Dot Hack franchise and the birth of modern Isekai. Let's jam.
Okay.
To
You know,
start, we rewind to the beginning of the spring anime season of
hold on, hold on,
2000.
hold on, hold on. I didn't really realize that like it was like this kind of was the beginning of isekai like stories. I didn't realize that. And you know what? I still have to watch this the anime of Dot Hack. I still have to watch it.
2002. While many people would assume that the first entry in the Dot Hack franchise was the original 4 PlayStation 2 games, since it is the games which historically ended up driving the franchise forward, in this particular case, Hack was kicked off a full 2 months earlier with the release of Dot Hack Sign. With a plotline that might sound overly cliche now, but was inspired back then, Sign tells the story of a young MMO player by the screen name of Tsukasa, who, due to mysterious circumstances, gets sucked into the MMO that they play and is forced to live in this digital world.
Oh,
Tsukasa is
wow.
not the same kind of protagonist, though, that we see becoming prevalent nowadays. He doesn't really know what happened to him, and largely he seems to feel apathetic about the whole thing. It might also be because it's not necessarily correct to call Tsukasa the protagonist. While he is definitely the focus of the series' big mystery, the plot isn't told from his perspective alone, and rather in how the rest of the cast of normal, not trapped players interact with him. Over the course of 26 episodes, Tsukasa ends up meeting with a variety of gamers who eventually learn of his plight and, despite Tsukasa's loner and introverted nature, seek to help him out of his predicament and also to scratch the surface on what actually caused him to be trapped in the first place and what that could mean. Now, I've largely been harsh on Sign over the years, mostly because a lot of what actually made the series good was dragged out over a length that I don't think it really justified. Half as many episodes would have served purpose just fine, although I can concede that the extra padding could have been necessary for someone who didn't have any other interest in the franchise and wasn't also playing or reading any other media, because Sign was very much a prologue chapter to the whole universe, and as such is not really good at being anything else but a gateway to the franchise. But because it's a
Okay.
gateway, one of the more brilliant things about Sign is that it had 2 different narratives going on at the same time, which I think is what made the franchise as a whole so appealing throughout the 2000s. While there was the surface narrative about Tsukasa's story that held the spotlight, throughout the series there were plenty of instances showcasing a much more mysterious and deeper narrative to the world itself. This did not get expanded here, but only touched on. Just enough to whet your appetite for it and make you curious about it, and to follow along with the franchise to see exactly where it was going. It took
Hmm.
the appeal of being sent to a fantasy world and applied it to a more modern context. Instead of being whisked away to some fantasy universe with swords and sorcery like in the 80s and 90s, it set up this intriguing digital world. One that, sure, it also had swords and sorcery, but also one that would entice viewers to want to live in it themselves. Which
Okay.
brings us to the games.
Hmm. Okay, now for just context, I've only managed to play Dot Hack Infection. I want to get the rest of the games, but what I'm trying to do is just beat Infection first and then get Mutation and then go from there.
The original Hack tetralogy was a series of 4 games released on PlayStation 2 between June of 2002 and April of 2003. It was a rare set of games that decided to split its narrative into multiple parts sold separately rather than one solid compilation. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get to that in a moment. The narrative of the games has the player character Kite introduced to this new MMO world by his friend, who plays a swordsman by the name of Orca. All goes well as an introduction to this new world until, during their first play session, they run across a mysterious girl being chased by a monster. In trying to save her, Orca gets hit with an unknown attack, which logs the character out. The story tells us later that the player is now in the hospital, having fallen into a coma. Now, our character Kite, armed with a fantastical bracelet given to him by the girl Aura, must explore the various caves and crevices of the game to uncover the truth behind the unexplained incidents so that he can, perhaps, save his friend. I loved these games when they came out, and my entry into the franchise began with them. This weird cyber mystery about coming together with friends to save a world we loved was a tale that had me hooked back when I was 12. Now, however, having replayed through the games in my late 20s, I can only say that the games have not held up. Though the reason for that is not because of the plot or the characters, but largely because of how Haku was developed and marketed. For example, when I said that the series contained 4 separate games, what if I told you that they really were all actually one game? Despite being split up into 4 separate parts, the gameplay of .hack never changed from volume to volume. If you just watched general gameplay in a video, you would be hard-pressed to identify exactly which game was in front of you, unless it was given away by a
You
specific...
know, I was gonna ask if they had changed, if anything changed in the difference in the games. No, it was just a continuation. I don't have a problem. Honestly, I like, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I liked Pokemon so much. It was because they didn't really change the style that much. It's still the same game. So whenever y'all saw me play Leaf Green, Fire Red, and then go into Emerald or Ruby and Sapphire, I was I was comfortable because it's the same feel. And to say that, it's like it's literally just different parts of it is not really anything different from the other games. That's like I said, that's not a problem for me. I don't even have a problem with that. I'm glad it's like that. It is, hey, listen. My friends have already, my two friends, my two brothers, Master Zen and Urban Ninja. They were just happy that I was enjoying the game that much because I was playing. I've been playing Dot Hack Infection like for months now, and I took a break off it, and now I'm back on it. And but when I first started playing, I was playing that shit until 5 o'clock in the morning. Like I couldn't stop because I wanted to keep playing.
specific party member, or an identifiable boss battle. A good comparison for this would be another popular PS2 era RPG series, Xenosaga, which between games had massive changes to both how the games were presented and also played. Hack really is just one game split into 4 pieces and sold separately for an unknown reason or purpose. For a long time, I assumed it was similar to how many PlayStation 1 games were produced back in the day on multiple discs. Because of the sheer amount of data, they needed to split the game off because it wouldn't fit on one disc alone. But oh no, pop in Game 4 of .hack, and once you complete the game, you have access to every cutscene and every dungeon from all the previous games. The only things not able to be replayed are the boss battles themselves, but I highly doubt that the models and attack patterns alone justify 4 discs, especially when all the boss stages themselves are identical to one another. So really, as far as the actual content to the series, it's all on disc 4 alone, or at least should be. It just isn't available, because why do that when you can sell the game in 4 parts at full retail value? It really does boggle my mind that they were able to get away with this back in the early 2000s. Like, can you imagine if they tried to do that today? Like, what if Square Enix came out and said that they were going to be releasing a Final Fantasy in episodic parts for no reason? No.
Yeah, they already did that, and guess what? They still gonna get their money. they still gonna get their money. I don't think anyone really is complaining. No offense to him, because I'm glad he did a video like this. That's talking about it. I don't think anybody has a problem with that kind of thing. It's just that just say it. But then again, for people who've played these games, they already know what they're gonna be getting. So you know, not much you can do.
Wait. It doesn't help that the vast majority of the game's plot is buried in gameplay tedium. Like, the whole goal with the gameplay was to create a simulated MMO world, and for 2002, I honestly think that they nailed that perfectly. And by that, I mean it was boring as shit. But having spent far too much
Nah,
time
it's
in more
not
modern
boring.
MMOs, the
I'm
grind.
sorry. Am I honest? I'm being biased. I'm sorry, but it does not boring to me. Look, listen. I just said it. I was playing that shit. I was playing that game till like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I might just do that again after this video because I want to see what else I can do, and then buy the other installment.
It's just a bit too much, because the whole game really is a grind and nothing more. 80% of this game is a loop where you are given a location keyword, you
Mhm.
travel there, and
Mhm.
whatever is supposed to happen will always occur on the bottom level of the location's procedurally generated dungeon. Get a new keyword, clear the dungeon, story continues without variation. 10% of the game, of course, is them simulating other parts of MMO life, like logging off the game to read your emails, only to then respond to them, and as soon as you log back into the game, ding dong, you got more mail! Like you weren't just there 2 seconds ago. Seriously, having multiple monitors are a godsend nowadays. Of course, the absolute worst part of the grind was dealing with your fellow players. And I'm honestly not sure if the AI is either helping or harming the realism in this respect. If you've played an MMO before, imagine a low-end pickup group where your fellow players have no agency on their own. They need to be told to do virtually everything, and in the more complicated fights, they sometimes feel more like a burden than a help. That's your party members in this game. Oh look, this enemy is immune to physical attacks. Good thing that Black Rose keeps trying to hit it with her sword, even after I went out of my way to tell her to use magic, which I know she has. Sometimes I truly wondered if it could get any worse, but as any PS2 era RPG player can tell you, this wasn't the worst AI party you could have been dealing with. It's just not fun. Perhaps for someone who didn't spend an embarrassing amount of time living in a more recent MMO world, you might find it to be quite enjoyable, but I found it to be a slog. One that I'm happy I repeated, if only for the nostalgia, but a slog nonetheless. So why did I enjoy it? And why did I spend years searching through game swaps and convention dealers' rooms for a copy, especially when the price is so high? Like seriously, Part 4 alone can cost you over $2,000. I did not mean $2,000, holy shit. Part 4 alone can cost you over 200 Canadian. And trying to snag the whole set can cost.
Man, come on. Listen. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm really not. I'm not saying he's wrong, but you see those numbers and you see that and that this the video is like 6 years ago and everything like that. Listen, I literally have dot hack quarantine in my cart on eBay for like $60. If anything, I I will gladly buy a pre-owned game that's worth $60 that has all the stuff with it. And yes, I checked it out. It had the DVD, the anime DVD with it, the booklet, the game, all that stuff. I already checked that out. Shoot, I might just buy it. I might just like because of temptation, just buy it as soon as this video is over.
Far more than that. Well, what kept me interested in the series for so long was the style of it. Sure, the
Yeah,
game
I
was
like it.
clunky, and looking at the narrative as a whole nowadays feels, well, cliche. There is a level of mystery and atmosphere to the development of the whole setting that still sticks with me to this day. Largely, I feel that this was due to the work of two musical composers, Chikayo Fukuda and Yuki Kajira.
Mm.
Fukuda was the composer for both sets of games, and while her compositions initially lacked a sense of epic scale at times when it might have needed it, she excelled in calming atmospheres and relaxed tones with just a hint of discord within them. It wasn't until the GU games that I thought she started growing heavily as a composer. This was when she was able to bring that same level of atmosphere to add both the epic scale for battle sequences and dial the unsettling calm up to 11. It was also when she possibly started taking some cues from Kojira's work on the franchise by including a new kind of eerie vocals, much to the mass enjoyment of all, especially me. While there were vocal tracks in the original games, GU is where Fukuda's work especially shined. Then we have the work of Yuki Kojira, specifically her work almost a full 10 years before she would come into far more prominence as a composer.
Wow.
In the grand scheme of things, Kojira only worked on a very limited section of the franchise, but her tracks are some of the most memorable. Not only that, but since she was the composer on .hack Sign, one of the few positive things about that series, and since Sign was the first piece of hack media to be released, Kojira was responsible for the initial musical tone that fans of the series were introduced to. Her work on Sign is still some of the best the franchise has had to date. And
I
it's really
seriously
no
have to watch
surprise
the
that
anime
shortly
now.
After this, she was tapped for another series of PS2 RPGs, and eventually called on to compose the music for the next stage of MMO Isekai in 2012.
Oh, so she did work on Sword Art
This all
Online.
actually leads to the question of, what happened? With the recent boom of isekai worlds steeped deep in gaming, why have we not seen a resurgence of this franchise from the depths of the PS2 era?
That's what I want to know.
While I don't have a confirmed answer to that question, I do have a particular theory. The franchise is way too bloated. The developers and owners of the .hack franchise went all in back when the series started, and I mean all in. They had a 24-episode .hack Sign that they produced, the original 4 PS4 games, and the sequel manga series that itself had its own anime adaptation. The games
Really?
also came pre-packaged with a 4-episode OVA called Liminality, which tells a story that happened concurrent with the game's volumes, and is a hell of a lot more compelling nowadays with its narrative than the games themselves. It doesn't end there, though. There were also a slew of novels released, from AI Buster to Another Birth to even Zero, and this is all before .hack reached its second stage.
Wow.
After the success of a bunch of hack media, a number of companies came together to help usher in the franchise's second stage. Titled .hack Conglomerate, this series did a bit of a time jump from a narrative perspective, and they paved the way for a whole new set of media. Anime, novels, and of course, a new trilogy of games. But all of this, even this second generation of hack titles, all came relatively quickly. To illustrate, let's bring up some dates, shall we? The initial release of the original .hack Infection PS2 game was on June 20th, 2002 in Japan.
Okay.
While the final entry of the sequel series, .hack GU, came out on September 10th, 2007. That's only 5 years.
Very. Wow. That's quick. So, okay. Okay. Because, look, listen. Honestly, it's not surprising because the PS2 era was long. It was big, but it wasn't long before we had gotten the PS3. So this makes sense if the GU games came out on PS2 as well. That makes a lot. Honestly, in my opinion, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, but that's relatively quick, especially if you didn't even get into the series like I did, forgot all about it. Meanwhile, there's 4 parts first that came out in early 2022, and here came the time skip, the so-called time skip, into more into it in 2007. Wow.
And every single piece of content I mentioned in the franchise so far all came out in that 5-year stretch of time. Honestly, we got burned out. At least I did. It was hard to keep up, so it's not surprising that people fell out of the franchise when they kept feeling out of the loop, unable to keep up with it all. So much so that for the 15th anniversary of the series, the creators came along and released an HD
Yeah,
remaster
last recode.
of the
Yeah.
GU games,
Yeah,
complete with a
now
brand
now
new
now 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 this is the game. This is the game that Urban Ninja told me about. That's and that's currently $5 on Steam right now. Um, he told me about this game. He played this. So, yeah.
the GU games, complete with a brand new fourth part. But I must say that I haven't seen the same level of excitement that I would have hoped from its release, at least not in the West. Perhaps the Japanese reception has been quite a bit different, but I seem to doubt that. Dot Hack is extremely notable for being one of the first in its genre of narratives to do something different. It took a formula which, at that point, had been done to death and breathed new life into it. I would very much be interested in seeing the creators try to come together to introduce a new entry into the franchise. And no, I am not talking about a Japan-only mobile game that didn't last for more than a year. Though,
Mm.
understandably, I can see the reluctance, as it's hard to really imagine where the narrative can go from where we left it. After going through 2 separate MMO games with dark hidden code in them, it starts to break our immersion to believe that these people would still want to play MMOs with that kind of Russian roulette back alley development. There was a PSP game released in 2010, Japan only of course, that introduced a third version of the World MMO as a setting, but it didn't seem to take off all that well. So now, what's left of the Hack franchise is a bit like a piece of history, rather than something that is still ongoing. It's something that can be looked at fondly and be noteworthy for what it was, and what it
Yeah.
did for the genre of narrative and its atmosphere, but sadly, not much else.
Mm.
If you wanted to dive into the series nowadays, you could always start at the beginning with Dot
Right.
Hack's Sign, as long as you can handle a story that really does feel like it's almost 20 years old. Either that or pick up the remaster of the GU series. While you would technically be missing a bunch of backstory to the setting if you went that route, it still works as a semi-introduction for newcomers and is as good of a place as any to start. Beyond that, I leave it to you. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it and want to
You're
see
welcome.
more of this
I
style,
enjoyed it. It was very
please
informative.
let me know down in the comments and give the video a like if you feel so kind. Very special thanks to all of our patrons, specifically Calhoun Boy, Matthew Robertson, Hector Montemayor, Siri.
But yeah. Um, you know what? I it's been a minute since I even watched him. Glass Reflection. I just a couple of years ago, I had slowly but surely was like listening to a lot of his stuff, and because he was very informative. I hope he still is. And I didn't even know he touched about this, but yeah. So in my honest perspective, I'm enjoying the series. I'm going to continue how started. I played Dot Hack Infection, but I will be watching Dot Hack Sign specifically because of what he just said. Um, and then just go from there for real, for real. Yeah, yeah. Now I realize that you guys probably aren't interested in something like this, and that's fine. That's fine. But for the ones who casually watch me, let me know down below if you remember something like this. If you are around the same age as me and you heard about this game, you remember this game way back in like somewhere around your childhood, somebody talking about this game, or you just came across it now. Feel free to let me know in the comments down below about how you feel. If anything else, you're gonna be talking about anything else random that has nothing to do with the video, I'm deleting it. Um, with that being said, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you guys so much for enjoying and watching this reaction. I will see y'all again next time. Peace.